some of the results. We did monitor these plants probably twice a year for a number of years, and we looked at what had survived, how vigorous was it. So we scored 100 if it was growing vigorously. If it was if it was dead, it obviously scored 0, and we had a 25 for something that was really struggling to survive or attacked by some problem or other. And in between we had a 50 and a 75. And poor, of course, or survival less than 25% and vigour less than 50. And in between we had a moderate. This is all the summary of, I guess I would say, the first 3 or 4 years of growth and development of the plants. So I'll take you through. So here we have an example of a plant that's fairly broadly adapted. Wherever you put it, it tends to do reasonably well. I think in terms of yield, this particular species will probably not do as well in the south, cooler, wetter areas as it will up in the warmer climates. But initially, the growth and development was pretty good everywhere we went. The lemon aspen, reasonably similar. That is, it did have quite a wide range of conditions where it would do fairly well. Again, the cooler, wetter places is where it didn't do quite so well. Now with citrus, I'll just explain here, we've got 3 different sorts. You might remember the blood lime I talked about, blood lime, the desert lime, and the sunrise lime. So in every place we've got 3 dots. And as you may imagine, places where there is a citrus industry, like the Riverland, they tend to do quite well. Over at Myrtle they were pretty good. Ceduna, Jamestown, even at Mount Gambier. So they're relatively widely adapted, and this is partly due to the rootstocks. These were all of these were grafted onto regular citrus rootstocks, and these are really quite adaptable to a wide range of conditions, those rootstocks. And what can I say? There were some failures, but I think this may not indicate the true potential. There might have been some failures, for example, here and here, that you could fix somehow or other. But really, Kangaroo Island is not a citrus growing area, not renowned for it, I would say. And the situation we had there had quite cool southwesterly winds coming across it much of the time. You could maybe make citrus grow in some kind of protected environment, but it's not really going to be an industry on Kangaroo Island. I mean, it's interesting. I can probably tell you that our field site here was owned by a guy who had invested in Australian native produce industries, which was a native food business back in the 90s and 2000s, and for some reason they put in quite a lot of blood lime and sunrise lime at this property. But based on our experience, which came along just afterwards, it wasn't a highly recommended option, in fact. You'll see later what does better on Kangaroo Island. So this is really, out of all the species we tried, these are the ones that can tolerate a fairly wide range of conditions. The Acacia victorii, and of course I mentioned there's Bruce Maslin's book. You can choose other acacia species that will suit your environment better than maybe an Acacia victorii. The coastal wattle, I think, Acacia sopherae, lots of people say from the coastal areas will say that's much better and it tastes fantastic. That's an example. Citrus, yes, but avoid cold and wind together. Lemon aspen. So we'll go to the quandong now. This is a bit of a patchy story here. We did have different selections of quandong, and you will know from Jeff's talk that quandongs are quite often grafted. So there are some selections. F is Franz Peringa Gem. There was an Eyre Peninsula selection from the Shoalmara plantation, and we also had some selections based around a tree that Brian Powell selected way back in the 1980s. So we put these in different places. We had very patchy performance across. So it doesn't do very well in the cooler, wetter areas, and should do well around, this is its natural range here, and it has done well, except the France Peringa gem material was really actually not good quality planting material. So I can tell you that Quandong will do well in these areas if you treat it right and you get good quality planting material. So there are some keys to grow Quandong successfully, and Jeff would have covered some of these, and I'll come back to those issues. The mud tree does seem to be relatively widely adapted, and it does well around its natural range, also around here, and it hasn't been quite so good in areas further afield, so this is its natural range around here. So I would say it's relatively widely adapted, a bit intermediate. Lemon myrtle, this is starting to show a bit more that it's more limited. Jamestown and Junee were reasonably good, but other places did not perform so well. Riberries were better in the cooler, wetter areas and did show some signs. We did have 3 different selections, A&PI selection, a variety called Cascade and a variety called Vic's Choice. And I would say there's a bit of difference in performance, but not a great deal. So most places you can see there's reasonably consistent performance. And at Stawell, we did have some trouble with very acid soil and lack of water at some stages. Bush tomato. Now, if you wanted to grow bush tomato as an annual plant, you could grow it widely across the whole range, but down in these areas, it will not really establish and grow year after year, which it can do if you are in the further north areas, like up here. So the intermediate range of plants, then Quandong, does need special attention. It needs a host plant in most cases, maybe needs some shading. You might need some fungicides. We found some fungal diseases will knock it out early. And you also must have good quality planting material. For Muntree, it's also relatively wide range, but we do see some patchy establishment in some places, and we've also seen orchards slowly die off for causes that we haven't yet been able to determine. So if you want to go on a large scale, I would advise go on a small scale first and then build it up from there and just see how Muntrees will perform at your place. Lemon myrtle can do quite well, but avoid alkaline soils for a good quality product, because it runs into some nutrient deficiencies like yellowing leaves, and for lemon myrtle you really do want a nice healthy green looking leaf to be able to sell it and market it. Riberry does need reliable water. Bush tomato, if you want to grow it as an annual crop.